This is my fourth straight fight here, and we've had success in all the fights we've had here. So my feeling is that we're going to continue that success here in Riyadh. Why am I not winning these fights? Why am I not performing the way I should be performing? Joe Joyce lost. That one changed a lot of things about how I approach fights now. Sometimes when I look at the fighter who was fighting Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua, I'm like, I can't even recognize that fighter because that fighter was not mature.
Do you have anything to say to Daniel Dubois right there?
Hi, Dan.
Well, welcome to the Ring Magazine Fight Week podcast, and I have the pleasure of being joined right now by the former heavyweight champion, a man hoping to become a two-time heavyweight champion. Fingers crossed, Joseph Parker. And he's holding on right now. It's Parker who's set up for the knockout. Is certainly doing so here in the 8th round.
Joseph Parker!
Joseph Parker delivers in the biggest fight of his life.
How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually doing very good.
We're here in Riyadh taping this, and I don't know if there's any fighters out there that have been able to take advantage of these Riyadh season events more than you. And this is your what, fourth straight fight here
This
in
is
Riyadh?
my fourth straight fight here, and we've had success with all the fights we've had here. So my feeling is that we're going to continue that success here in Riyadh.
You really are proof, and Sergio and I talk about this all the time, but you're proof that losses really don't matter because you've had some stumbles along the way, some setbacks, but each time you bounce back and put yourself in big fights. Do you feel that way? Like you're kind of evidence that, hey, you lose, hey, you just pick yourself back up and go do it again.
So you lose. A lot of people are fixated on this perfect record. And I can be an example of losing a fight or two or three and being able to bounce back and fight. Like those fights or those losses are actually lessons. And you ask yourself questions, why? Why isn't everything going to plan? Why am I not winning these fights? Why am I not performing the way I should be performing? And when you ask yourself these questions from these losses, you make change. And I felt like making this change, I was able to come back a lot better.
So what setbacks were more educational then for you? You had the back-to-back losses to AJ and Dillian White. You had the knockout loss to Joe Joyce. Which of those two kind of setbacks did you find to be more informative for you?
It would probably be the recent one, the Joe Joyce loss. That one changed a lot of things about how I approach fights now and scheduling, programming, training, balance in life. I think with the Joe Joyce fight, lost that. Still went to camp again the next, probably 2 weeks later. And I had a fight with a guy named Jack Massey. And that fight still was a horrible performance. I should have been able to beat him comfortably. And then I started asking more questions of myself. And that's when I employed George Lockhart to do nutrition. And from there, I found out he did strength and conditioning. And then him and Andy together and myself, since we've all started working together, has just become in sync with each other, And we work very well together.
What's been the impact of Andy as your head trainer? Because you look at some of the success you've had, and he's been in your corner for some of these recent fights, including the two most recent ones, which were your biggest wins of your career.
Yeah. Andy there's someone said to me before, you can have a lot of trainers and a lot of them can be good pad holders, but not all of them can be teachers. And I feel that Andy is a great teacher. He breaks things down. He was able to teach me the basics again, because sometimes when you learn the basics, you step away from it and you start adding on all these different moves and everything, and you forget the basics. I think the basics are very important. So we're able to work on that. And then with George coming on board, the nutrition part, which I was missing, strength and conditioning, and just balance around recovery. I think that's been key.
Was it easy for you to accept learning new things? Like before Andy and George came along, you were an accomplished guy, accomplished amateur, world champion. Sometimes when you accomplish a lot, you think, all right, I don't really need to know a bunch of new stuff.
I was like a open book. I was like a sponge when I started working with Andy. Everything I knew, I just let go of. And I just said, teach me exactly what you want me to know and what you want me to understand. With George, same thing. I said, you know what? I'm here. Just do whatever you need to do. Whatever food he puts in front of me, that's all I eat. Whatever he puts in front of me to drink, that's all I drink. Nothing else. I don't go away and eat anything else. So I'm like, I feel like I'm a good student. And I feel like I listen, I learn, I take in, and I make it work.
Would you describe yourself as a completely different fighter then than the one you had earlier? Yeah.
Big time. Sometimes when I look at the fighter who was fighting Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua, I'm like, I can't even recognize that fighter because that fighter was not mature, wasn't taking it very seriously like I am now, and wasn't really appreciating the position that he was in. Whereas now, I love it.
When you came off the Joyce loss, like I figured when you lost the AJ fight and it was a close fight with White, like you're young enough that, all right, he'll be back. He'll bounce back. When you lost to Joyce, was there any part of you that wondered, like, did I miss my opportunity to get back to that top level?
It wasn't so much the thought of missing the opportunity. It was like, why? Why is everything going horribly wrong? You know, like just all these questions started flooding and like, this is not how it's supposed to be. I went home to New Zealand and I said to my wife, this is not how it's supposed to end. Like, I'm better than that. And then all these questions obviously helped.
What was it, I mean, getting over that mental hurdle of like, you know, why did this happen? How difficult was that and how did you do it?
Obviously getting straight back on the horse and going straight back to training camp and trying your best to overcome that by having another fight and still horrible performances. And it's taken me 12, nearly 13 years to find what works for me and to find what I feel like is the best formula for me that works and also the best structure. It's taken me that long. And I've been in, like you said, I've been in this boxing world for a long time. But I feel like now with all that experience, I feel like now I've only just begun.
I mean, only just begun. You've got some big wins over the last couple of years. I remember sitting there watching the Wilder fight, and that was really a masterful performance by you in that fight. Like your ability to just handicap Wilder, to keep that right hand in check from him. Like to me, that was as much a mental game by you, a mental win by you as it was a physical one.
It was like going into that fight, like Wilder. I even think that Wilder was a different fighter too. So I might probably call him at the right time also with the best game plan. But he wasn't the same fighter that he used to be. But I gotta
give yourself credit there though, because I think you did things that maybe other fighters were afraid to do in the past or just weren't able to do in the past. Like you definitely did. Did some
going into that, I just said to Andy, what do you want me to do? And he said, we need to nullify his right hand. I said, how are we going to do that? He said, we need to fight.
You said as an old American saying, like, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Gotta nullify his right hand. Okay. Yeah, it's easier said than done.
Easier said than done. And it was just, he said, we need to fight fire with fire. And that week, that's when we started practicing the overhand right. And timing, practice, and it came to fruition.
And then the Zhang fight, you know, you get knocked down that first time, and I'm like, oh, you know, this is when John was coming off those 2 wins over Joyce. Here we go, another big knockout. When you got knocked down that first time, what was kind of going through your head?
I said, oh, damn. You know, when you get knocked down from someone like Zhang, who's 133 kgs, 290 pounds he was. Yeah. I thought to myself, okay, this is when you need to get yourself together and keep your structure, keep your composure, because this guy's going to come for you. And he did. And Zhang is one fighter that you have to be careful because he's very structured in his approach, and he's very his timing is very good as well. And probably that fight, my endurance was a lot better than he was, so I was able to throw more punches and be the busier fighter.
Of those 2 wins, which would you say you're more proud of?
I would say the Wilder fight, just because of that was probably a massive card at that stage. It was probably one of the best cards we've seen. And there was already a fight being locked in, Wilder and Joshua.
I had a whole thing ready to go after the fight. Like there was a plan. Like AJ was going to beat Wilder was going to come in the ring. I had a whole setup. We had like a sheet ready to go. You screwed that whole thing up.
Yeah.
See what you did?
And that's probably why it was the better win for me.
Yeah. Because
of everything else that was going on behind the scenes and just being overlooked and just an opponent for Wilder to finish off.
You fought for a world title before. You've won a world title before. But this opportunity coming up against Daniel Dubois, does it mean any more to you than the first time around?
It means way more. Because I'm fighting this fight, the championship of the world with Dubois, for me, for my wife and kids, for my countries. Before I was doing it for my dad. I wanted my dad to be happy. I wanted my dad to be proud. I wanted to win the championship of the world for him, but I'm doing it more for me now. And I feel that's going to mean something way more different this time.
Why is it different? In what ways is it different?
It's like different because I actually want to do it for me more now. I want to do it for New Zealand side but more for me. And I'm fighting to, like, everything I'm doing now is just, everyone sort of said I should have finished boxing, I should have retired, and I was done. But I want to prove to myself that I still belong at the top.
Did you ever think about that?
Never.
Never.
I know when I want to retire, but I wasn't. It's not now.
But you were hearing some of that noise in the outside?
I heard all the noise.
Yeah.
He's had a great time, and he's a gatekeeper. He should retire. He should finish. Had a great career. But I was like, this is not how it's supposed to be.
What do you think of Dubois?
I think he's a very talented fighter. I think sitting down in person with him and talking, he doesn't say a lot. But there's some switch that turns on when he's in the ring. And he's shown great performances in the last 3 fights, Miller, Hrgovic, and Joshua. And he's like a man who's found this new self-belief and confidence. And he's got great ability and power.
He's experienced a resurgence of his own, kind of like you, over the last few years, where he had his skeptics, he beat them back, and he's had some big wins over the last few fights. What have you seen different from him in these recent fights that maybe wasn't there early in his career?
I see that he believes more in himself now. And there are times in the fights with, say, Miller and Hrgovic where times did get tough and times did get hard for him. But he was able to bite down on his gum shield. And he showed a bit more dog, a bit more dog, grit. And he showed that he was able to overcome all these hard times and go in there and get the win.
I generally don't think that fighters overlook other fighters, but it was notable that after Alexander Usyk wins his championship, you get Dubois in the ring, gate crashing the interview and saying, "Hey, Usyk, I want my rematch." And I remember watching that on TV and I'm thinking, he's got a pretty big fight coming up, just a couple of months' time. Like, when you watched that, what did you think?
I was there. I was there and I thought to myself, what's happening here? But then you also look at it like, was he told to do this? Like, no one was just going to let him in the ring. Like, someone must have just given him a mic and said, go for it, So is he doing what he was told to do?
It was a little awkward.
It was a bit awkward. And there's a bit, that was Usyk's moment. He just came off a great fight with Tyson and he won again. And it was his moment. But I guess boxing, they always try and set things up for the future.
What's the key for you to beating Daniel Dubois?
I have to be focused on my approach and focus on what I want to do. And if I let him dictate and if I let him pressure me and push me around the ring, then it's his game and it's his fight. And I need, we've come up with a good game plan, put in all the work. It's just about going out there and putting on display. I need to be smart.
Are there any similarities to the Wilder fight in that you're looking at two guys both with pretty good right hands? Are there any similarities there?
They both got good right hands, but the biggest difference is Wilder throws less punches. Dubois throws volume. And all of those punches have power. So I have to be way more switched on. Instead of just looking at one punch, I have to look at like 6 or 8 punches coming all at once,
Do you have to match that volume? Is that part of your approach?
Not really. I wouldn't say match that volume. I would say you have to be switched on with him every second, every minute of every round. You have to be very careful, but you also have to, when he's attacking, you have to find your holes, right? And find your timing.
Well, good luck to you on Saturday, and we're asking everybody to give one final message into that camera to their opponent. So, if you have anything to say to Daniel Dubois, right there.
Hi, Dan. I'll see you soon.